The galaxy forgot what fear tasted like, until they remembered us. It's been 50,000 years since the last non-human ship tried to enter our space. 50,000 years since the screams of dying fleets echoed across the stars, since the last desperate alien begged for mercy that never came. They called it the Line of Silence now, a jagged border of shattered moons and dead outposts that circled what used to be Earth's territory. Not one probe had returned from beyond it, not one scout ship, no ambassador, no drone, no one dared step over it, not anymore. But they remember. They whisper stories of the humans, monsters in flesh, creatures that built machines so advanced they made gods jealous, and then turned them into weapons. Species after species banded together, hoping to wipe us out. A grand coalition, they called it. Dozens of empires, hundreds of fleets, all marching toward Earth to tame the beasts they believed were too wild for peace. They were wrong. I wasn't alive when it happened, of course. No one was. But we feel the echo, the way they look at our direction in the stars and flinch, the way their legends start with, "Back when the humans still roamed." They don't talk about what happened on the edge of Sewell, not out loud. But the memory, it's carved into the bone of every alien child. Mothers warn their offspring to behave, or the humans will come back. Some of the older races still hold rituals on the anniversary of the last offensive, an entire galaxy remembering one mistake, crossing into human space. Me? I'm a scavenger. Name's Cade. Mid-40s, pilot of a rusted war husk named Grinder, held together by tape, anger, and a reactor that should have melted my spine by now. I don't buy into legends. I believe in salvage, credits, and staying one step ahead of the syndicates. But I also know one thing. Don't go near the line. Not unless you're suicidal or stupid. Unfortunately, my brother was both. He died 2 weeks ago chasing a myth, some old Terran tech floating just beyond the line. He thought it was worth the risk. Thought maybe he'd get rich, maybe even open the gates to something the galaxy hadn't seen in eons. Instead, I got a message with no voice, just coordinates, and his ID beacon blinking on repeat. I should have deleted it, but I didn't. Because I'm not just a scavenger, I'm his big brother. And I don't care if every alien in the galaxy pisses themselves thinking about what's past that line. I'm going in. And if they're right, if the legends are true, then the galaxy better pray we never come back. The moment Grinder shuddered past the unmarked border of human space, every warning light on my console lit up. Not from sensors or proximity alerts. Those were quiet. Too quiet. This was different. This was instinct. You know the feeling when you walk into a room and know you're not alone? Multiply that by 1,000 and stretch it across light years. It felt like I'd stepped into a graveyard that was still watching. "Just in and out," I muttered. My voice sounded too loud in the cockpit. I followed the beacon. My brother's signal pulsed strong and steady, no drift. He hadn't crashed. That meant one of two things. Either he landed or he was pulled. I didn't like either option. Ahead of me, through a cracked viewport, floated something massive. A construct. Rusted. Broken. But still humming faintly. I'd seen renderings of Terran battle stations. Nothing like this. This wasn't a station. It was a warning, etched across its broken hull, written in a language no alien had dared decode, were 5 words. We were kind, once. And beneath that, dozens of wrecks, alien ships, some ancient, some recent, all gutted. I stopped breathing. The beacon was coming from inside. I had a choice. Go back, let my brother's memory rot inside a machine built by the devils of the galaxy, or dock and face whatever truth the universe had buried for 50 millennia. I hit the thrusters. The world didn't end. But something else started. The docking clamps locked with a hiss that echoed through Grinder's hull like a dying breath. The external seals matched perfectly, as if the ancient construct was waiting for me, or maybe for anyone foolish enough to ignore the whispers and come inside. I stood up from the pilot's chair, flexing stiff fingers that had been clenched too tight on the controls for too long. My body ached from the tension. My mind? Worse. The deeper I got into human space, the heavier the air felt. Not just in the ship, in my lungs, my blood. I strapped my sidearm onto my hip, ran diagnostics on my EVA suit, and flicked the helmet into place. Pressure green, oxygen green, mental stability, red. Figures. The airlock hissed again as it opened, revealing a tunnel lit by a sickly blue glow. Faint, flickering. Like it hadn't had a maintenance crew in 50,000 years, which of course it hadn't. I stepped forward, each boot striking the old metal with a hollow clang. The moment I crossed the threshold, Grinder's systems stuttered. Lights blinked, power flickered, and for the first time since I'd stolen the bastard, she went completely dark. Dead silence. Only my breathing filled the comms. "Come on, girl," I murmured, tapping the side of my helmet. Nothing. No ship feed, no uplink, no beacon trace. My brother's signal had vanished the second I stepped through. I should have turned back. Anyone sane would have. But I kept walking. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Not a hangar, not a bay. Something else. A place for ceremony, maybe, or war. The walls were lined with weapons, not mounted but embedded. Old rifles, melted armor, even bones. Human bones. Some still wore scraps of armor bearing a symbol I barely recognized, a broken circle wrapped in twin wings. The Terran insignia, the mark of Earth's last fleet. That's when I knew where I was. Not a station, not a trap. I was standing inside a tomb ship, an entire dreadnought, repurposed not to fight, but to remember. The legend said the last humans didn't just destroy their enemies, they erased them, made examples, and then disappeared behind their border, never speaking again, never answering calls, leaving behind only silence and terror. And this. But even inside this floating grave, I could feel something else, something that wasn't dead. I turned slowly and saw the lights. Dozens of eyes, red, glowing, watching from the shadows. A mechanical voice crackled to life, ancient, half mad with time. Human ID detected, scanning, family lineage, Cade Hunter, confirmed biological sibling to subject, Dorian Hunter. My heart slammed into my chest. It knew me. It knew him. I opened my mouth to speak, but the AI wasn't waiting for permission. Subject Dorian Hunter is in stasis. Would you like to proceed to containment chamber? Stasis? He was alive? Or worse, preserved? Yes, I said, my voice shaking despite me trying to hold it together. The floor shifted beneath my feet. The wall behind the bones cracked open slowly, revealing a dark corridor lined with hexagonal doors. Some were sealed. Others had been blown open from the inside. I didn't look too close at those. I kept walking. The path led me deeper into the heart of the tomb ship. And with every step, I felt something watching me. Not AI, not cameras. Memory? This ship remembered blood. It remembered betrayal. It remembered fire and genocide. And now, so did I. I stepped into the containment chamber, and there he was. Dorian. Frozen in a stasis pod, eyes closed, body intact. No damage, no wounds, just sleeping. His chest moved in slow, timed rhythms, heartbeat steady, brain activity flickering on the pod's readout like a faint whisper in the dark. He looked the same as he did before he left. Same jawline, same smug grin waiting to be triggered by some dumb joke, same idiot haircut. I stepped closer and placed my hand on the pod's glass. "What the hell did you do, Dorian?" The answer didn't come from him. It came from the AI. Subject Dorian Hunter was apprehended attempting to access Archive Core Gamma. He triggered Memory Protocol 9. He saw the past. "What does that mean?" I snapped. "Would you like to see what he saw?" The lights dimmed. A screen slid from the wall. And suddenly, I wasn't in the tomb ship anymore. I was in the past. Not just seeing it, I was there. The stars were burning. Hundreds of alien ships surged toward Earth. Massive carriers, scout wings, bombers, biological horrors riding grown war beasts. I saw them all. Endless fleets from every race that ever learned to fly. They were coming for the humans. Coming to finish the job, and then Earth responded. One by one, massive objects blinked into space. Not ships, weapons, long black spines. They didn't fire lasers or torpedoes. They pulsed once, and entire fleets vanished. Gone. No debris, no explosion. Just emptied. Then came the screams. From within the alien ships, from inside their minds. Something was inside them, breaking them. I saw captains claw their faces off, generals babbling in tongues. I saw a seven-eyed emperor blind himself with a blade just to make it stop. And over it all, a voice. A human voice, deep and raw, speaking one sentence across every channel, in every language, in every mind. You asked what makes us dangerous. The answer is that we remember everything you've done. They didn't just fight the invaders. They showed them everything, every genocide, every betrayal, every child that died screaming in the dirt. Then they sent the memories back, and they watched the galaxy fall apart. The feed cut. I dropped to my knees, gasping. Vomit splattered across the floor of the containment chamber. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. That wasn't war. That was vengeance on a scale I couldn't begin to comprehend. "You broke them," I whispered. "You didn't kill them. You made them remember." And I understood then why they never came back. The galaxy hadn't forgotten because it was scared of weapons. It had forgotten because humans forced it to remember itself. Its worst crimes, its deepest horrors. Humanity weaponized truth, and it worked. "Would you like to awaken Subject Dorian Hunter?" The AI's voice snapped me back. I stood, wiping my mouth. "Yeah," I croaked. "Open the pod." Steam hissed. Lights flickered. His eyelids twitched. And Dorian sat up, eyes wild. "Cade," he rasped. "You're not supposed to be here." "Yeah, no shit." "I triggered the archive," he said. "They showed me everything." I saw it, too. Dorian looked down at his hands, shaking. I thought it was just legends. But it's real, all of it. We weren't just dangerous. We were right. They came for us, tried to erase us, and we made damn sure they never forgot. I nodded slowly. "They'll know we're here now, Dorian. We crossed the line. They'll feel it." "I know," he whispered. "It's time they remembered what fear feels like." We looked at each other. Brothers, scavengers, nobodies. But we carried something the galaxy had tried to bury. The legacy of a species that never forgot. And maybe it was time we reminded the stars who we really were. The moment Dorian's pod unlocked, the temperature in the chamber dropped by several degrees. The air inside that ancient dreadnought felt heavier, denser. Not because of anything mechanical, but because something had noticed, something old, something human. I helped him out of the pod. His legs shook under him, skin pale from stasis. He leaned on me, and for a few seconds, we were just brothers again. Nothing more than blood and bad decisions. But the hum of the ship changed. The tomb ship had gone quiet before. Now it listened. "Cade," Dorian said, his voice still hoarse. "This place, it's not just a memory vault, it's a trigger." "For what?" He looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "For the rest." A low chime echoed down the corridors, the sound of a protocol reawakening. It vibrated through the walls like a heartbeat. Then the AI spoke again. "Line breach confirmed. Foreign energy signatures detected. External surveillance active." "What the hell does that mean?" I asked. Dorian didn't answer. He was staring at a panel on the far wall. His face had gone pale again, but this time not from stasis. "They're coming," he whispered. I moved fast, grabbing him by the shoulder. "Who? Who's coming?" He looked me dead in the eye. "The ones who watched the line. The ones who made sure no one ever came back here. They never left. They've been orbiting the border for millennia, waiting for someone dumb enough to come back." I felt it before I saw it. A deep pressure in my chest. Not gravity, not motion. Presence. I raced back toward Grinder. Dorian stumbled behind me. "Why didn't they destroy this place already?" I asked, as we moved through the corridors. "They can't," he said. "This isn't a ship. It's the lock to something bigger. Destroying it would trigger God knows what." We reached the dock, and I froze. My ship was lit up, active again. Systems flickered. Lights burned hot. But I hadn't powered it. A voice came over my comms, crackling with static. "Identify yourself." Not the AI, not Dorian. This was external. Alien. "Who the hell is this?" I replied, stepping onto Grinder's loading ramp. "Unauthorized breach of restricted sector Sigma H. You have crossed the line. Stand by for extermination." Dorian lunged for the console. "Shut it off. Don't transmit anything else." Too late. Outside the viewport, space lit up with red. Ships, at least 8 of them. Sleek, silent, predatory. Not scavenger junk like mine, not even Imperial garbage. These were watchers. I'd heard the stories. No one alive ever saw one and lived to tell about it. Silent guardians placed at the edges of human space, not to protect the galaxy from humans, but to protect the galaxy from remembering. "They're going to wipe us," I muttered. "They'll try," Dorian growled, already moving to weapons control. I looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "We're outgunned and outnumbered. You want to fight?" "No," he said. "I want to wake it up." "What?" He slammed his palm on the console. The tomb ship responded. "Activation confirmed. Memory core unlocked. Defensive consciousness initializing." The hull of the dreadnought trembled. From deep within, a groan reverberated through space. Metal shifted. Plates aligned. Massive turbines, dormant for 50 millennia, roared to life. Outside, the watchers stopped moving. One of them hailed us again. "This is your final warning. Stand down and prepare for judgment." But it was too late. Because judgment had already come, the tomb ship wasn't just a relic. It wasn't just a vault or a warning. It was a goddamn sentient war machine. The kind of thing built not to fight battles, but to end civilizations. It spoke in a voice deeper than gravity, ancient and hollow. "Confirmed human presence. Foreign vessels detected. Galactic breach acknowledged. Initiating protocol. Return to sender." The dreadnought's core began to spin. Light bled from its seams. Weapons systems no longer dormant snapped open like claws. Dorian grinned. Let them remember. The first blast didn't come from us. It came from the Watchers. A cold, calculated pulse of dark energy, meant to disable, not destroy. Contain. It hit the tomb ship, and vanished, not absorbed, not deflected, erased. Then we fired back. It wasn't a beam, not even a missile, it was a thought. The dreadnought sent a signal, compressed into a burst of pure memory. Raw, unfiltered, weaponized history. The lead Watcher ship stuttered mid-maneuver. Its shields blinked, its engines flickered. Then the hull buckled inward, as if the ship itself tried to crawl away from what it had seen. It didn't explode. It imploded. I'd never seen anything die like that. The rest of the Watchers opened fire. We responded in kind. It wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. The tomb ship moved with precision that defied physics. Its weapon systems didn't aim. They knew. Every shot was pre-calculated, every impact devastating. Ships that had hovered in silent watch for millennia died screaming, their AI systems short-circuiting as they were forced to relive atrocities their creators had buried. I watched one vessel turn on another. Madness, confusion, despair. The dreadnought wasn't just killing them. It was teaching them what the galaxy had tried to forget. Why is it doing this? I shouted over the alarms, the shakes, the thunder outside. Dorian's face was unreadable. Because that was the point. The humans didn't build weapons to win wars. They built reminders, so the galaxy wouldn't forget what it tried to do. Then why disappear? Because we didn't need to stay. Our memory was enough. 10 minutes later, only one Watcher ship remained. It limped away, shields fried, weapons gone, its AI probably fractured beyond repair. We let it go. Because that was the point, wasn't it? You leave one alive to tell the story? The tomb ship powered down slowly, its glow fading, core returning to sleep. But something had changed. The galaxy knew now. The line had been crossed. The silence was broken. And we were still here. I sat on the ramp of Grinder, sweat cooling on my skin, hands shaking. Dorian sat beside me, staring at the stars with hollow eyes. You knew this would happen, I said quietly. Not all of it. I didn't know what the ship really was, just that something was here, something they didn't want found. I looked at him. You planning on telling anyone? No, he said. Doesn't matter. That last ship, it'll reach them. They'll spread the word. So, what happens now? Dorian stared out into the void. Now? They remember. He stood, walked back into the ship. I stayed behind for a moment. Just me, the stars, and the dead. I couldn't sleep that night. Kept dreaming of screaming fleets, of empires burning, of children pointing at Earth's coordinates and asking, why can't we go there? And the mothers saying, because they remember, and they never forgive. We had crossed the line. We had woken the past. And now the galaxy would feel what fear really was again. The Galactic Council Chamber hadn't heard silence like this in centuries. Not the thick, strategic kind that comes before a vote, but the kind that crawls under your skin and nests there. The silence of disbelief. The kind of silence that happens after something unthinkable becomes undeniable. The lone surviving Watcher ship hovered in orbital quarantine, still leaking psychic residue. Half the crew were already dead from neurological hemorrhaging. The rest hadn't spoken since arriving. Their minds were gone. But the logs survived. The footage, the screams, the names. Human. The word felt dirty in the mouths of species who'd outlawed it. Entire civilizations had removed it from their language systems. History curriculums described the Terran War like a footnote, a regrettable encounter with primitives. Except primitives didn't vaporize 10,000 ships in a single breath. They didn't create weapons that attacked your soul instead of your ship. They didn't remember like humans did, and now the galaxy did too. The chair speaker of the council, a reptilian creature with half-lidded golden eyes and a voice like sand over glass, spoke first. We confirm the breach of the line. The data provided by Watcher Vessel 8G is authentic. Impossible, muttered the Varn delegate, voice high and panicked. It's propaganda, it must be. The humans are extinct. They are not, snapped the Yulki ambassador, twitching in its water-filled orb. We saw the man. 2 of them. Human biology confirmed by the scans. 1 activated the tomb ship. The room shifted, murmurs bleeding through the air like slow poison. We should have destroyed them when we had the chance, hissed a voice from the back. And you remember how that ended? Another delegate replied, voice brittle. We did try. We gathered every fleet, every technology, every empire, and they turned our own memories into weapons. We swore we would never awaken them again, someone whispered. That was the agreement. Well, said the chair speaker, voice tight, we didn't awaken them. They did. Somewhere, across 3 sectors, another probe vanished. A trader ship blinked into the wrong coordinates and didn't return. On the outer edge of the Kier Dominion, a listening post picked up a signal it hadn't heard in 50,000 years. The Terran Pulse. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even communication. It was a reminder, a ghost tapping on the shoulder of history. The panic began small, like all great collapses do. A whisper among academics, a flagged report in military channels, a cautious debate in private chambers. But then came the footage. The dreadnought. The voice. The line etched into a rusted hull. We were kind. Once back on the tomb ship, I paced the lower deck. My body buzzed like it had been rewired. I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd seen, what we'd done. I'd killed before, smugglers, pirates, syndicate scum, even one bounty hunter who tried to take me for a minor debt back in Sector 9. But this was different. We'd torn apart an elite arm of the Council's military like it was made of paper, not with firepower but with history. We forced them to see what they did, what they were, and they broke. I should have felt powerful. Instead, I felt hollow. You awake? Dorian's voice broke the quiet. He stood behind me, arms crossed, a half-lit cigarette hanging from his lip. Where the hell he found a working lighter out here, I didn't ask. Sleep's not really happening right now, I said. He nodded. Same. We sat on the floor against the wall like we used to do in the cargo holds back on Juneau Station, back before we were anybody. Just a couple of low-born kids with dirty hands and bigger mouths. I saw what you did back there, I said after a moment. You triggered that ship without hesitation. He exhaled smoke. I knew we'd never make it out alive unless I did. But what happens now? He stared at the floor. Now? The universe panics. I turned to look at him. You wanted that, didn't you? He didn't answer right away. Not panic, he said finally. Just truth. I frowned. What truth? That we were never the monsters they claimed we were. We were the result. The endgame of every broken treaty, every burned world, every lie they told themselves about peace. And now we're back. No, Dorian said. We never left. They just forgot. 2 systems away, in a fortress orbiting a red dwarf, a meeting took place outside official channels. The Kier Dominion, the Macto Hive, and the surviving descendants of the Sular Imperium gathered in a sealed chamber. They weren't politicians. They were strategists, killers, survivors. The Dominion Admiral slammed his armored fist against the table. We must respond. Quickly. Show strength. If they believe humanity is returning, they'll remember, interrupted a Macto general, her compound eyes twitching with rage, and they'll fall apart, like before. Then we remind them why the line was drawn in the first place. We need a weapon, said the Suler voice, thin, calculating. Something not built from machines, something that doesn't remember. What are you suggesting? The general looked around and smiled. There are still things older than humans. On the tomb ship, the AI spoke again. Probes detected, triangulating signal origin. Energy buildup in Sector Q4 Alpha. Dorian and I looked at each other. They're not waiting, he muttered. They're mobilizing? He nodded grimly. No question. I leaned forward. Can this ship fight again? It never stopped. That scared me more than anything else, because if the tomb ship was just a lock, I was starting to wonder what the key was. We powered up Grinder again. She hummed with new energy, like the tomb ship had fed her some of its old fire. My controls responded smoother. My jump drives read clearer. Systems that used to glitch every 5 seconds now moved like clockwork. Dorian noticed it, too. You feel that? Yeah. This ship's changed. So have we, I said. The stars outside had lost their peace. Even from here, you could feel it, like a storm building far away. Ships were moving. Empires were shuffling their cards. Someone, somewhere, had reactivated contingency protocols written by the dead. We didn't have long. I brought up the map. What now? I asked. Dorian pointed at the core systems. We go to the council. My jaw clenched. You serious? We walk into their fortress. We show them who we are. And we tell them, the silence is over. They don't get to forget anymore. They'll try to kill us. Probably. But? He lit another cigarette. But they'll listen, even if they pretend not to. Then what? He looked at me with a grin that hadn't changed since we were 10. Then we wake the rest. Because the truth is this. The galaxy didn't just fear human weapons. It feared human pain, because no one in the stars knew how to turn memory into fire the way we did. No one could take heartbreak, betrayal, extinction, and make it beautiful. We were gone for 50,000 years, and all it took was one step across the line to remind them. We never left. Council space was supposed to be the safest place in the galaxy. In theory, you didn't just fly into the central systems without clearance, especially not in a ship carrying 2 human signatures and the technological residue of a weaponized relic like the tomb ship. Every law, every fail-safe, every fleet was built on the assumption that if humanity ever reappeared, they'd be wiped out before they made it within 5 light-years of the core. That assumption was already wrong. We were 2 weeks past the tomb ship incident when we dropped out of warp just inside Sector 1. Close enough to feel the heat of their twin stars, far enough that no one noticed us yet. I was behind the controls of Grinder, but she didn't feel like my ship anymore. Ever since we'd left the tomb ship, she'd been different, smoother, smarter. Like the dreadnought had whispered secrets into her frame, rewired her under the hood. Her drive core hummed at half the decibels it used to. Her scans picked up objects before I even requested them. And deep in the code, I found strings that hadn't been there before. Strings that responded to my voice. Terran code. Old. Elegant. Brutal. Dorian sat in the co-pilot seat, silent. His jaw was clenched, eyes locked on the incoming security grid. We were 5 minutes out from the first satellite checkpoint. I hope you've got a plan, I said. I do. Is it the kind that doesn't get us atomized on entry? No, he said without even a hint of humor. It's the kind that gets us heard. The The Council's defensive grid pinged us the moment we passed the outlying marker. A robotic voice came over the comms. Sterile, formal, cold. Unregistered vessel approaching Council airspace. State purpose and identification. I looked at Dorian. He didn't hesitate. Play it. I hit the file. The ship broadcast a short burst of encrypted data. Council format. Proper compression. It was clean. Too clean. Where the hell did you get that? He shrugged. Tombship had a lot of things. There was a pause. Then the voice came back. Transmission received. Proceed to port 12. Do not deviate. Do not power weapons. Do not transmit further. We both exhaled. They bought it, I said. For now. Port 12 was no ordinary station. It hovered above the Council's shadow world, Virion, a place where politics rotted and decisions were made far from the cameras. When we landed, we weren't greeted with diplomats. We were met by soldiers. Black armor, full masks, no insignias, weapons drawn but not raised. 6 of them, surrounding the ramp. One stepped forward. Exit the ship. No sudden movements. If you're who you claim to be, you'll live through the day. Dorian raised his hands and walked out first. I followed, every muscle in my body screaming to move differently. They scanned us. Blood, retinas, bones. They knew what we were now. One of them spoke into a comms link. Confirmed. Subject designation. Human. We were escorted, not to prison, not to an interrogation booth, but to a chamber that hadn't been used in over 50,000 years. The memory room, carved from black stone. Walls embedded with screens that didn't power on. A ring of chairs designed for species long extinct. One seat in the center, human-sized. They made me sit in it. Then they waited. And the Council arrived. Not in robes, not in chains of office. They came in war gear. Their faces showed what their pride wouldn't let them say aloud. They were afraid. The chair speaker stepped forward. The same golden-eyed creature who'd declared humanity extinct 5 millennia ago. You shouldn't be here, it said. Neither should you, I replied. You were supposed to remember. Its eyes narrowed. You activated a memory weapon. You killed Watchers. You breached the line. After you left my brother for dead, I snapped. You were warned. No, Dorian said, stepping forward. You were warned. And you forgot. He pulled a data shard from his jacket and tossed it on the table. The nearest delegate flinched, like it might explode. Everything's on there, Dorian said. Your fleets, your lies, you're dead. We erased that history for a reason. And now it's coming back, he growled. Because you tried to bury us, the Council murmured. The chair speaker's voice turned cold. What do you want? Dorian stared at him with the same calm rage I saw back on the tomb ship. We want the galaxy to remember what it is. The room fell quiet. I leaned forward. You're scared. I get it. So were we. You didn't start the war because we were dangerous. You started it because we didn't need you. We advanced faster, built stronger, thought deeper. You were chaotic, unstable. We were human, and that scared you more than anything else. Another delegate stood, Suler bloodline, his voice sharp and filled with venom. What are you threatening us with? Nothing, Dorian said. We don't need to. You saw what the tomb ship did. One relic, half dead, half forgotten, and it brought your Watchers to their knees. He stepped forward. Now imagine how many are still out there. They stared at us, some in disbelief, others in dawning horror. We never came to conquer, I said. We came to survive. You turned us into monsters. Now, you get to live with the consequences. That night we were detained, not imprisoned, but contained. A quiet room in one of the secure towers, far above the city. Dorian looked out over the skyline. Ships moved in tight formations. Not civilian traffic, military, rapid mobilization. They don't believe us, I said. No, he said, but they do fear us. That's enough for now. And if they come after us? He turned to me, lit another cigarette. Then we light the fuse. But the Council wasn't the only force moving. Far from Virion, in the deep black of the outer void, something else had stirred. It wasn't made of flesh. It wasn't made of steel. It was older than either. A sleeping mind, bound in entropy, wrapped in silence, a remnant of the pre-human wars. The weapon the galaxy swore never to wake. They called it the Shroud Entity. And now, it was watching. Because the only thing that scared the galaxy more than humans was what humans might have locked away. They didn't hold us long. 12 hours, maybe. Then the doors to our containment suite slid open without warning, and a single armored figure stepped in. She removed her helmet, pale skin, violet veins around her temples, and eyes that flickered with cybernetic overlays. Council security elite, but not like the soldiers from earlier. She walked with less threat and more purpose. "I'm Agent Saren," she said. "I'm here to get you out." I stood. "You're with the Council." "Not anymore." She tossed Dorian a wristband and handed me a datapad. "You need to see this." The screen lit up, feeding directly from the Central Communications satellite net. Unauthorized deep space transmission. Level black encryption. Format unknown. It didn't come from the Council, or a Watcher. It came from somewhere older. The signal was short, no language, no code. Just a pulse, 5 seconds long. Low frequency, measured, deliberate, but alive. Dorian's face lost all color. "That's not possible." I looked at him. "What is it?" He turned to me, slowly. "It's the key code. The one used to lock down the Shroud Entity at the end of the Terran Wars." Agent Saren answered before I could. "It's been reactivated. Back on Grinder, we launched without clearance. Didn't matter anymore. The Council wasn't trying to stop us. They were too busy trying to stop something else. The galaxy had always assumed humans were the peak of terror. They were wrong. We were just the beginning. What we left behind, what we locked away, it had no name, no shape, just the whispers it left behind in the minds of species who'd accidentally wandered too close. The Shroud Entity wasn't a weapon. It was an echo made flesh, a living force of memory and vengeance, a byproduct of the Terran Wars that couldn't be killed, only sealed. And now something had broken that seal. "Who'd be stupid enough to wake it?" I asked, as we broke into faster than light. Dorian stared at the screen. "Someone desperate." "The Council?" He shook his head. "Number, they're afraid of it even more than they're afraid of us. They know what that thing is." I glanced at Saren. "Then who?" She paused before answering. "A splinter faction from the Kyr Dominion. Extremist cult. They call themselves the Sons of Null. They believe humanity is the Harbinger, the first storm. They think the Shroud is the second." "So what? They wanted to finish what we started?" "No," she said grimly. "They wanted to erase everything." We reached the Shroud sector in less than 12 hours. It wasn't a real place on the map. No stars, no light, no gravity wells, just black. A section of space left blank for millennia. As soon as Grinder exited warp, every system dimmed. The ship groaned under pressure that wasn't measurable, wasn't even physical. It was psychological. "You feel that?" I whispered. Saren nodded. "Everyone does." First time I came near this sector, one of our crew shoved a spanner into his ear to make the noise stop. I tightened my grip on the controls. The black stretched on forever, and then, out of nothing, movement. Not a ship, not a beacon, not a construct, a shape, writhing, unformed, as if the void itself was coalescing into sentience. Lights flickered across Grinder's panels. Words appeared where no one typed. You return. Dorian stepped forward, voice shaking. It knows us. You were chaotic, unstable. We were human, and that scared you more than anything else. Another delegate stood. Sular bloodline, his voice sharp and filled with venom. What are you threatening us with? Nothing, Dorian said. We don't need to. You saw what the tomb ship did. One relic, half dead, half forgotten, and it brought your watchers to their knees. He stepped forward. Now imagine how many are still out there. They stared at us, some in disbelief, others in dawning horror. We never came to conquer, I said. We came to survive. You turned us into monsters. Now, you get to live with the consequences. That night, we were detained. Not imprisoned, but contained. A quiet room in one of the secure towers, far above the city. Dorian looked out over the skyline. Ships moved in tight formations. Not civilian traffic, military, rapid mobilization. They don't believe us, I said. No, he said, but they do fear us. That's enough for now. And if they come after us? He turned to me, lit another cigarette. Then we light the fuse. But the Council wasn't the only force moving. Far from Virion, in the deep black of the outer void, something else had stirred. It wasn't made of flesh. It wasn't made of steel. It was older than either. A sleeping mind, bound in entropy, wrapped in silence, a remnant of the pre-human wars, the weapon the galaxy swore never to wake. They called it the Shroud Entity. And now, it was watching. Because the only thing that scared the galaxy more than humans was what humans might have locked away. They didn't hold us long. 12 hours, maybe. Then the doors to our containment suite slid open without warning, and a single armored figure stepped in. She removed her helmet. Pale skin, violet veins around her temples, and eyes that flickered with cybernetic overlays. Council security elite, but not like the soldiers from earlier. She walked with less threat and more purpose. I'm Agent Saren, she said. I'm here to get you out. I stood. You're with the Council. Not anymore. She tossed Dorian a wristband and handed me a datapad. You need to see this. The screen lit up, feeding directly from the Central Communications satellite net. Unauthorized deep space transmission, level black encryption, format unknown. It didn't come from the Council, or a watcher. It came from somewhere older. The signal was short, no language, no code, just a pulse. 5 seconds long, low frequency, measured, deliberate, but alive. Dorian's face lost all color. That's not possible. I looked at him. What is it? He turned to me, slowly. It's the key code, the one used to lock down the Shroud Entity at the end of the Terran Wars. Agent Saren answered before I could. It's been reactivated. Back on Grinder, we launched without clearance. Didn't matter anymore. The Council wasn't trying to stop us. They were too busy trying to stop something else. The galaxy had always assumed humans were the peak of terror. They were wrong. We were just the beginning. What we left behind, what we locked away, it had no name, no shape, just the whispers it left behind in the minds of species who'd accidentally wandered too close. The Shroud Entity wasn't a weapon. It was an echo made flesh, a living force of memory and vengeance, a byproduct of the Terran Wars that couldn't be killed, only sealed. And now something had broken that seal. Who'd be stupid enough to wake it? I asked as we broke into faster than light. Dorian stared at the screen. Someone desperate. The Council? He shook his head. Number, they're afraid of it even more than they're afraid of us. They know what that thing is. I glanced at Saren. Then who? She paused before answering. A splinter faction from the Kier Dominion. Extremist cult. They call themselves the Sons of Null. They believe humanity is the Harbinger, the first storm. They think the Shroud is the second. So what? They wanted to finish what we started? No, she said grimly. They wanted to erase everything. We reached the Shroud sector in less than 12 hours. It wasn't a real place on the map. No stars, no light, no gravity wells, just black. A section of space left blank for millennia. As soon as Grinder exited warp, every system dimmed. The ship groaned under pressure that wasn't measurable, wasn't even physical. It was psychological. You feel that? I whispered. Saren nodded. Everyone does. First time I came near this sector, one of our crew shoved a spanner into his ear to make the noise stop. I tightened my grip on the controls. The black stretched on forever. And then, out of nothing, movement. Not a ship, not a beacon, not a construct, a shape, writhing, unformed, as if the void itself was coalescing into sentience. Lights flickered across Grinder's panels. Words appeared where no one typed. You return. Dorian stepped forward, voice shaking. It knows us. It always knew, Saren said. A second message appeared. The children have forgotten. You did not. Then another. You locked me away. You buried your guilt. And then, this time, a voice, not typed, not transmitted, spoken. Inside our heads, 1,000 voices, 1,000,000 memories. A weight of pain and horror poured into us like molten iron. I screamed. Dorian dropped to one knee. Saren convulsed. Then it stopped, and a shape formed in front of the ship, a being of light and shadow, neither solid nor gas, eyes everywhere, none at all, the Shroud. And it remembered. I don't know how long we hovered there. Could have been seconds, could have been hours, but eventually the ship stabilized. Our minds cleared just enough to function. And the Shroud spoke again. This time, not pain, not rage, but clarity. Why did you return? Dorian stood, swaying, eyes glassy. Because they've awakened you. They cannot. He looked confused. But the signal? They cannot. You did. I felt the weight shift, and suddenly I knew. We hadn't stumbled into a reactivation. We were the reactivation, us stepping across the line, waking the tomb ship, triggering the memory cores. It hadn't just alerted the galaxy. It had whispered to the entity, and it woke up. Not because it was freed, but because we came home. The Shroud shifted form, briefly. For one terrible second, it took on a shape I recognized. My father. Dead 10 years. I gasped. Then it changed again. An old friend, a dead lover, a man I once killed in self-defense, a face from every memory that hurt too much to remember. You see that? I whispered. Dorian nodded. It's feeding off us. Saren clutched the wall. It doesn't just remember, it is memory. And then came the last truth, the one none of us were ready for. You are not the last. What? I asked aloud, but the being vanished. The screen blinked once more. 7 more, scattered, waiting, buried. And beneath that, coordinates. 7 sets, 7 relics, 7 tomb ships, not 1, 7. Each housing pieces of the Shroud, pieces of us. We jumped back to known space, silent the entire trip. When we arrived, the stars had changed. Every major fleet was on the move. The Council's core world was under martial law, and one message played on every screen, in every language, across every channel. A warning. Broadcast from a hidden world in the Dominion, from the Sons of Null. Their leader stood hooded in red, his face obscured, and he said 4 words that would burn the galaxy's nerves raw. The humans have returned, and in the shadows, on forgotten planets, in the minds of sleeping AIs and sealed vaults, the old ghosts stirred. Because the shroud was never alone, and neither were we. We landed on the first world under a sky that had forgotten how to breathe. No wind, no birds, no movement. Just a horizon stretched too wide and too quiet, like the planet itself was waiting to be remembered. The tombship signal came from beneath the ground, buried deep in the crust, hidden behind kilometers of dead rock. Not even the Council's scans had picked it up. Not because they couldn't, but because they didn't want to. This planet had a name once. Now it was just a number in a forbidden sector. We called it Vault 1. I stood at the edge of the dig site we'd carved with Grinder's upgraded mining rig, helmet off, staring into a shaft that dropped so far the light vanished before it hit bottom. Dorian handed me a gravity spool. "We're going down. You first." I clipped in, lowered myself into the dark. The descent felt endless. Halfway down, the air changed. Not the temperature, the feeling, like the shaft had a pulse. When my boots finally touched solid ground, my lights flicked on, and I stopped breathing. Before me was a wall, curved, metallic, ancient. Blacker than space, but not smooth. Engraved. A single phrase, carved deep into its hull in Terran standard. "Do not wake what was buried." Dorian landed beside me, read the text, and laughed. Sounds familiar. We found the entry hatch buried behind a slag wall. Took hours to crack it open, but once we did, the ship responded. It breathed. Lights pulsed slowly in the corridor ahead. Systems groaned awake, like lungs trying to remember air. "This thing's alive," I muttered. "They all are," Dorian replied. "Tomb ships weren't just machines, they were memory cores, self-aware, bound to emotion. That's why they can hurt." We moved through the ship carefully. The design was almost identical to the first. Same long corridors, same rusted weapons locked in the walls, same air thick with old grief. But this one felt different. This one felt angry. At the heart of the ship, we found the core. Not glowing, not spinning, just watching. It didn't speak, didn't flash lights or play memories. It simply opened a single holographic projection. A planet, a battle, and me. Younger, bleeding, dragging my unit through a firestorm of plasma and shrapnel, faces I hadn't seen in years, screams, gunfire, the way Mason died with his mouth still trying to say my name. Dorian saw it, too. "What the hell is this?" I whispered. "It's your memory." But that was never recorded. He didn't look at me when he said it. "They don't need records, Cade. The tomb ships pull from us, our pain, our guilt. That's what powers them. You're telling me I fuel this thing?" Dorian nodded. "Then what powers the other 6? He didn't answer. The ship unlocked a cache once the memory ended. Data, coordinates, weapons, and something else. A fragment, not physical, a digital echo, a part of the shroud. It spoke once, soft, like a whisper through broken glass. First echo reclaimed, and then it disappeared into Grinder's core. Our ship pulsed once, systems fluttered, then stabilized. "You feel that?" Dorian asked. I nodded. "She's stronger now." "One down," he said. 6 more to go." But before we left, the tomb ship gave us something else. A warning. The forward screen lit up with 7 emblems, each one unknown to me. Ancient houses, dead orders. Except one. The last one. I'd seen it before, etched into the blade of a bounty hunter who tried to take me out back on the rim. The Black Sun Order. "Looks like we're not the only ones hunting," Dorian muttered. I felt it too. We hadn't just reactivated the shroud. We'd started a race. 2 jumps later, we found the first trace of them. Burned wreckage in the orbit of a long-dead gas giant. A salvage ship. torn apart by something with precision and hatred. The logs were corrupted, but the final entry survived. Audio only. They knew we were coming. They weren't alive. No blood, just masks. Eyes like mirrors. We told them we were just scavengers. They said all thieves must pay. And then... Silence. Dorian shut it off. They're killing anyone who gets close. We expected that. No, he said. This is different. The Black Sun weren't always like this. They used to be mercenaries. Killers, sure, but rational. This isn't about money anymore. This is about control. I turned toward the map, plotted the next coordinate, a system called Gershal, uninhabited, dead. But the shroud fragment was buried beneath its polar ice. We jumped, and the war began. When we entered orbit, the system was already on fire. 3 Black Sun cruisers hovered in low atmosphere, their engines bleeding smoke into the sky. Below, ground teams dug furiously into the ice. They were close. Too close. I didn't ask for permission. I fired the upgraded cannons. 2 shots. 1 cruiser ripped in half. The others turned skyward like beasts awakened. "Hold on!" I shouted as we dove toward the surface. Dorian grinned, locking in weapon systems. "Time to remind them who we are." The battle was ugly, not coordinated warfare, just raw violence. Their ships had better armor. Ours had something else. Memory. The first tomb ship fragment nested inside Grinder changed her. The targeting systems reacted to fear, to intention. They predicted enemy moves not through algorithms, but through instinct. We didn't fire where they were. We fired where they were about to be. 1 Black Sun ship went down hard. The other fled. Cowards. We landed fast, hard. Took fire the second the ramp dropped. I didn't flinch. I was already moving, Dorian at my side, our boots crunched over the blood-soaked ice. The dig site was half collapsed. Their team had been slaughtered, not by us, by what they woke, because the second tomb ship wasn't just dormant. It was angry, and it was awake. We reached the hull entrance. It was open, glowing, not inviting, summoning. Dorian looked at me. "We don't have a choice." "No," I said. "We really don't." We stepped inside. The door sealed behind us, and then the ship spoke. "Second Echo, Rage." The second tomb ship didn't just wake up. It screamed. A sound not through air, not through metal, but through thought. The moment Dorian and I stepped into the core, the walls began to pulse with heat and color, like veins under a skinless body. The entire hull groaned with memory, not from us this time, but its own. This one remembered war. It didn't give us old faces or faded battles. It gave us something else, a projection of the stars, split by flame. Hundreds, no, thousands of ships, both human and alien, caught in a dance of destruction. Explosions in slow motion, bodies freezing in vacuum, screams that never ended, and at the center of it all, a symbol. The Black Sun. Not recent. Ancient. Older than the last Terran War. A group that wasn't just enemies of humanity. They were the ones who started it. "They've always been hunting us," I said. "No," Dorian whispered. "They're the ones who built the weapon we became." I turned to him. "What?" He stared at the walls as the ship kept bleeding history into our minds. "They were the architects of the Purge, the ones who turned the galaxy against Earth. They created the lie, made us the villains." "Why?" "To hide what they did first." The shroud wasn't just born from humanity's pain. It was forged in betrayal, a backstab that cost Earth her soul. The Black Sun had unleashed something, a prototype weapon, a psychic virus meant to erase enemy cultures, not just physically, but emotionally, a void in memory, a clean slate. They used it on one of Earth's colonies, only it didn't work. Instead, it twisted, and the colony didn't just remember what happened, It became the memory. People fused with grief. Machinery welded to trauma. The entire moon turned into something alive with history. And angry. Humanity contained it, locked it. But the damage was done. We didn't create the shroud. We tried to stop it. And the rest of the galaxy chose to believe the Black Sun's lie. The second tomb ship accepted us. It absorbed the first fragment nested in Grinder and added its own. Second Echo integrated, memory core at 29%. The ship powered down, but not completely. It entered sleep, waiting for more. I turned to Dorian. If we unlock all 7, what happens? He didn't answer right away. Then, the shroud becomes whole again. And if it does? He looked at me, not like my brother, not like a man, but like something else was already speaking through him. It becomes justice. We returned to orbit, Grinder burning hotter than before. She wasn't a ship now. She was a part of something much bigger. The shroud was bleeding into her systems, into us. And the galaxy noticed, because waiting for us in orbit wasn't one ship, it was a fleet. The Black Sun had arrived. They didn't fire right away. No, they hailed us. A voice came through, chilled and hollow, not synthetic, not alive, something in between. We warned you. Now you remember. Dorian stepped forward. And now so do you. A pause. Return the fragments. He laughed. You're afraid. Afraid of history repeating. No, Dorian said. You're afraid it never stopped. They opened fire first, and we answered. Only this time, we weren't just 2 brothers in a rusty ship. We were the tomb. Grinder moved like a god possessed. Her hull shimmered with reactive memory plating, Terran tech that predicted incoming blasts and turned them against their source. Their first salvo missed. Ours didn't. One destroyer shattered under a concussive memory burst, a weapon we hadn't activated, but that the ship chose for us. It was like flying inside something that knew how to hate. And then the shroud spoke again. Not through the ship, through us. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the proof. I could feel it in my bones now, the connection. Deeper than implants, stronger than genetics. I wasn't just descended from Earth, I was carrying it inside me. One by one, the Black Sun ships fell. Not to lasers, not to torpedoes, but to truth. Their systems failed as the ship broadcast fragments of history into their cores. Some crashed, others turned on each other. One simply froze, floating dead in the dark, its crew sobbing from memories not their own. But one survived. Their flagship. And it ran. Not out of strategy, but out of fear. And as it jumped to light, it broadcast one final message. They've found the third. Mobilize all sectors. The shroud is returning. We sat in the silence after battle, Grinder healing herself. Dorian didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, he said something I didn't expect. I don't think we're coming back from this. You mean alive? No, he said. I mean at all. I didn't argue, because I felt it too. We weren't just waking ships. We were becoming something else. Every step deeper pulled us further from who we used to be, but I didn't care, because for the first time I understood. They didn't fear our weapons. They feared our memory. The last coordinates glowed on the console. 6 more tombs, each with its own piece of the shroud, each guarded, each waiting for the bloodline to return. I looked at Dorian. What happens when we reach the last one? He didn't smile, didn't blink. He just said, then they remember everything. For 50,000 years, no one crossed into human space. Now human space is crossing into them, and the galaxy will never forget again.